Hello. Welcome to the InterPlay podcast with your host today, Tere Zorich. It is such a delight to bring this conversation to y'all today. I am getting to speak with my friend, my collaborator, Agnotti Cowie. For those of you who don't know them, I'm going to share a bit about them with their bio. Agnotti, she grew up in Chicago and is passionate about the intersection of social justice, community dialogue, and performing arts. They facilitate workshops employing a variety of pedagogical techniques, such as interplay, theater of the oppressed, clowning, and devising. Since 2013, Agnotti has been hired by InterPlay to produce and facilitate events around the world, as well as becoming their development director in 2020. After several years of working as a performer, they stepped into the role of co-director in 2021 for Operatic, which is a neighborhood-based public art organization in Chicago that creates free, multidisciplinary, highly participatory arts events. They wear many hats and sometimes try to juggle them. Welcome, Agnotti.
Hello.
Hello. I want to hear about this juggling of hats. I've tried juggling before and it was not a skill that I could acquire.
Yeah, I did, in fact, recently learn how to juggle. And I actually haven't crossed over to hats, but I thought it would be a funny ending to at least this bio.
Yeah, I'm amused. Highly. I love it.
I almost wrote in my bio that I'm also a silly Billy. But
yeah.
that, I can now announce that live.
So. Yeah. Now everyone knows Agnotti is a silly Billy. I'd like to admit that I'm a goofy girl.
There we go.
There's stuff. Yeah. Can we start with some I could talk abouts? And can you start?
Sure. I could talk about how today I had to kick my dogs out so that they wouldn't make noise during this.
Yeah. I could talk about recently finding a huge tote bag at Goodwill that fits all of my work needs because I tend to just be kind of around town for work.
I could talk about finding one of those old school backpacks so that I can make a backpack puppet.
Oh my gosh, I could talk about stalking you for this interview and like going to your collaborators pages and like seeing the stuff you've been doing with the puppet film. I think there was like a puppet named Alfred who was so cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alfred has appeared in 2 of my works. Alfred is a clownfish that I made. I also constructed the puppet as well. So Alfred is in this theater piece called Fluidity, and then also made his debut in a puppet film that we did with Glop. And it's called Living with Albert, and I'll post that on my social media soon.
Yes, put it on the social medias. That's amazing. Well, I'd like to start our questions with one of this podcast's cornerstone questions. How do personal embodiment practices, such as interplay and other somatic modalities, contribute to a deeper understanding of yourself?
Yeah, well, I have found that play is a place to really engage and expand your understanding of yourself. And through play comes creativity. So I also do this in the theater world. We play with ideas, with themes, in order to see what comes up, see what we can create. And then we have a bigger understanding of either what we want to create together as theater artists or a deeper understanding of ourselves. And a beautiful part of InterPlay is being able to notice. And in the noticing part of InterPlay is really where we can touch into ourselves and take a moment to, just center into our own experience, and begin to either put words to that or just feel into that in the moment.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that already theater has come up a few times, and I have to share that I stalked you. I also went to your website, agnotti.com, and I want to read this little piece. You wrote, quote, "Theater can transcend the single performance, creating a transformational experience," end quote. Can you share a bit more about the transformational qualities of theater?
Yeah, there's a lot of different elements to how it can transform. A lot of the work that I do is often immersive or interactive. So with Operatic, which I mentioned in my bio, we transform parks. We create this whole world around a theme. And then we ask people to explore and come into it. And our goal in that organization is to create spaces where community members can really feel like artists and really be able to experience creating together as a community. So that also transforms neighborhoods so that people between each other can feel connected and feel safer. And so that's one way of that theater can transform. The power of storytelling, which we also experience in InterPlay, is a way that we can transform and expand our understanding of the world, because we're all living in our own existence with our own experiences. And the more we can storytell and share what each of us are experiencing, it can transform. Actually, it's not just my experience. There are like these other sides of the story, other experiences that I don't even know yet. So it's both through the art of just storytelling, one-on-one in performance, but also being able to have that story be in a theater piece.
I heard when you were talking about Operatic, this idea of like artists, you as an artist, creating spaces where other people can also be artists, not just like audience members, not just watching the art, but becoming artists themselves. And in talking about InterPlay, kind of a similar idea of like there's a space where everyone is a storyteller, there's a space where everyone is sharing. I'm wondering about your own personal journey to becoming a director for these organizations, and like what more interweaving do you do with your work?
Yeah, there are a lot of overlaps with a lot of the things I do. And, with both of them, I think I just have showed up with integrity, and then people saw that and kept giving me more responsibility. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you want me to fill this position? Cool. So that is, I think an element. And sometimes I'm like, oh, me?
Me? Yes, yes, you. Amazing. Yes, integrity is definitely a word I think of when I think of you, and not just as a friend, but also someone I get to work with. And one of the ways we work together is by putting on InterPlay's annual Art and Social Change program, which is coming up this summer. We just put the event page up on interplay.org, and details will be in the show notes. I also know that you attended the first ever Art and Social Change program back in 2010. And I just am curious to know, what is it about InterPlay that has inspired you to have this as a practice for now over 10 years?
Yeah. So I was doing InterPlay, or no, so I was in college. I hadn't done InterPlay. I was doing Theater of the Oppressed. And I was really active in social justice theater. And one of my professors said, you should really look into InterPlay. Like, go find Cynthia, is really what she said, in Oakland.
Mhm.
And I saw this program. I had never done it. I just decided to go from Chicago to Oakland with the description because it was exactly what I was looking for. Because, Theater of the Oppressed is really good at looking at societies and structures and thinking about how to kind of like tear them down or challenge or, those kinds of things. But I really wanted a practice that was more about building up community and building up space for people to connect and, just kind of be together. So I went to the program and it changed me, I actually had just that year experienced a great loss, and my brother passed away that year, and I came into the space with so much grief. And some of the interplay, just having a community to be honest with about where I was and be able to dance my story and release all of this heaviness that I was experiencing. That is the moment that convinced me that this practice was for me, and that because I was leading all of these other theater things, I was like, I want to learn how to lead this. And I kind of went into that journey right away, learning how to lead that. So yeah, that was in 2010. And, shortly after I joined the board, and then I had your position previously, liaison to emerging generations, and then eventually did fundraising and the development director role. But it was really those elements of, feeling like we can be in community and be honest about where we are, because our body wisdom is really rooted in the honesty of where we are, whether that is on the floor with grief or jumping ecstatic with joy. All places in your life and your body are welcome, and we can have moments for all of those to be together.
Beautiful. I'm curious to hear more about this experience with grief, because I think when it comes to grief, it's something that we don't really have communal cultural practices around outside of perhaps a funeral service. But I find grief can often happen behind closed doors or in the arms of a loved one, which of course is important. But you're talking about dancing. You're talking about dancing through your grief. Was that the first time that you had moved through your grief like that? And what was that like for you?
I'm getting chills just thinking about that moment. And I remember I had this sweater, this hoodie that was my brother's. And he had muscular dystrophy. So he kind of he would lose like muscle strength. And so the holes in his elbows were worn off, especially on the right one. So I would wear this like hoodie with holes in it. And I just did this dance with the hoodie. And it was like, just kind of like being hugged and pulled. And, I don't, remember all of it, but it felt like almost a dance with my brother. And also just like having community there afterwards, because it was in a focus session context. And for those that don't know, focus sessions are for often a facilitated session for an individual who might want to explore something using the tools and forms of InterPlay. So I was like, look, I'm holding this grief and I need some focus on that. And so that was one element of the focus session. And another element was witnessing the community dancing for me and dancing for me and my brother and that story. And so the whole thing was so healing. And like you said, there's not a ton of community spaces for us to grieve. And, since then, I've done a couple of workshops that are inviting that and actually naming that grief is welcome. And there are amazing interplayers who also focus on grief as well, like Sheila Collins does amazing work like that with grief too.
Thanks for sharing. I want to share a public comment from Javi. Hi, Javi. She is in our Facebook Live. She is saying, interplay and arts and social change helped me process a great grief as well. Yes, Javi is my good friend, another beautiful friend, and someone who attended the Art and Social Change program last year in 2023. Thanks for sharing, Javi. I want to go back to what you were saying about theater of the oppressed and interplay and kind of I don't know if it was a transition from you from like facilitating theater of the oppressed to making a switch to interplay. But I do recall when I was first introduced to interplay, it was a workshop that was going to be co-facilitated by you and Kelsey Blackwell, and it was a Theater of the Oppressed and Interplay workshop. And I'm curious to hear about like the interplay between these practices.
Yeah, I think they go really well together. And I just don't do Theater of the Oppressed as often. I don't facilitate. I don't have like spaces as much that are asking me to come do a Theater of the Oppressed. But I think they work really nicely together because there are some elements in interplay that help us remember to take care of our bodies and naming that. And it's so important when we're talking about oppression. And I don't think that was very explicitly named in Theater of the Oppressed, that like even in engaging in conversations around oppression that are embodied, that we can say no, like actually that's too much for my body to do right now. So having those work hand in hand, and then also some of the storytelling elements of Theater of the Oppressed can help sort of engage in our stories. And then I like to also use some of the de-stressing forms, the release forms in between. So we're not just like, focused in on this oppression and then we feel it in our bodies and we contract. But when it's interspersed with interplay forms and tools, we can find a sense of ease even when we're looking at structures of oppression.
Yeah. I feel like that goes really well into my next question, which is kind of a big one, but I really want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
What do you see is your role as an artist and culture maker in creating social change as we strive for ceasefires to genocides and collective liberation?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, some days I feel like I'm not doing enough. And, that really art helps draw attention to things that are happening in the world, but they might not always be the thing that like solves what's happening in the world, especially what's happening in Gaza and the genocide. And that's why I feel sometimes pretty helpless. And because the things that I'm doing don't feel like they're actually causing change, because it's still happening and it's like still weighing on us. And I think our roles as artists are to inspire people to do that. And I've been thinking about Robin Wall Kimmer, who is Potawatomi botanist who is one of my inspirations and one of my guides, a writer. She talks about despair, and she talks about despair in terms of environmental issues. Like, it's important not to sink deep into despair because then we don't take action.
Mm.
And so I think the role of art and the role of interplay help us stay above the despair line so that
Yeah.
we can function, so that we can act, so that we can pressure, power makers, people that actually have direct influence to the
Mhm.
people we're trying to challenge. So I think it's a little bit of a roundabout. Sometimes it's not direct. I think there is, like, in terms of me and Palestine, but I
Mhm.
in terms of me and other social change things, there is a more direct um, influence I have. Like, for example, the stuff, being a teaching artist in the Chicago Public Schools.
Mm.
I think, that sort of relational element and really trying to, like, inspire and give tools to young people. Those are kind of like smaller and more direct ways. And then also, I did mention Operatic. We often pair and partner with organizations that are doing more direct involvement with like low income or subsidized housing organizations. And we are bringing an element of building community and building artfulness and building joy. Uh,
Mm.
so making sure that partnerships are aligned and connected, and that we're all supporting each other in this collective journey for justice.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of your approach, or just a lot of the work you do in general, is about like person to person and also like internal, like inside you as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, and interplay is beautiful for the interpersonal and personal exploration. It's also been just an amazing practice for my own personal, development and change, which helps me be a better person in the world.
Mm. Yeah. Um, Again, moving beautifully into the next question. I love this. Agnotti, how do your somatic practices contribute to your sense of belonging in the world?
Yeah, I think that, it's important that people feel a sense of belonging somewhere, and we're often craving that. And I think the spaces that I'm, trying to engage in, and both in the art world and the interplay world, um, help build connection. So sometimes these structured moments of play, like in interplay, or these structured moment of play, like we do in operatic, help, help that connection be built. Because
Mhm.
sometimes we need a little bit of facilitated or some sort of common thing to do together in order for that connection, that community connection, to be like strengthened, and then we can feel as though we belong. And oftentimes, we do question. Everyone questions, oh, do I belong in this space, especially if it's a new space.
Mhm.
I do go to Juggle Club, and at first I was like, do I belong here? And then now, I go almost every week, and so I guess I do belong here. So yeah, I hope
Yeah, yeah. That makes me think of a podcast episode I was listening to earlier. the Ergo podcast, I believe it's called. They interviewed Prentice Hemphill, who is a somatic thought leader I really admire. And Prentice was talking about part of like the importance of dancing together is just getting like in the same rhythm together, just like creating that collective togetherness through art, through dance, through theater. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I wanted to share, I told Agnotti before we came on here that I have a surprise prop. Yeah, it's surprise prop time. And this is a surprise prop that they're going to recognize for anyone listening without the visual aid. I'm going to be very descriptive in describing my surprise prop. But here it is. I have to bring it. Let me say what it is for everyone listening. Oh my gosh, Agnotti has one too. I got this from Agnotti. This was a gift from Agnotti. It is a finger puppet, and it doesn't fit on my finger, but I'm making it fit on my finger. It is a hand. It is a hand on my finger, and I love it. It's always on my nightstand.
That makes me so happy.
Yes. Agnotti, do you want to describe to the listeners what's happening right now? What are we doing?
We both have hand finger puppets. So they're hands that go on your fingers, and we're kind of dancing with them. So another thing, so I also bedazzled a bunch of these and gave them to a bunch of InterPlayers.
Oh my gosh.
Because in InterPlay, we have a hand dance or a hand-to-hand dance. So my friend and I just like bedazzled a bunch and sent them to people. So
It's like hand dance, not squared, I don't know math, but times 5 if you put it on each of your fingers.
I still have a bedazzled one.
Oh my gosh, it's so cute. And also, Olaf in the Facebook chat gave us a clap, which looks like a hand. So we're getting more hands in here. Beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah. I know you grabbed some props when I informed you that I was going to have a surprise prop. Do you want to share in detail? Because I want to know.
Well, I wanted to be prepared for what the surprise prop was.
Yeah.
So I just brought my tiny backpack, which can fit on a fanny pack, which is usually what I do.
Oh my gosh.
And it's filled with all sorts of things. So because I wanted to be prepared for this interview, this very
You're a director. Yes, you're prepared.
And this was in there. So I was prepared. The hand was in there.
Yeah.
And then we have a finger puppet, a couple different finger puppets, a chicken.
Oh my gosh.
We have a elephant finger puppet.
Oh.
Yo-yo. A wooden game thing. A mask. A magnifying glass, of course. This is a slingshot chicken.
Oh my gosh, I need one of those.
Some other like little toys, like this is a snake, a kazoo. Another slingshot chicken. Actually, I didn't realize all this stuff was in here. So
a lot fit into the mini backpack. Yes.
Good.
I feel like this is such a good time to bring up your clowning because I know it was in your bio, but like, look at you with all these props. Of course you're a clown.
Of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recently discovered that one of my family friends who I played with as a child is a clown, puppeteer, and theater artist. Like these, I know. I thought I would like became a clown later in life, but then I realized that like it was there from the beginning. And you know, when everyone else was like maybe playing house, I was always trying to get people to create theater with me. And I think it was because of these family friends. They kind of made that the play of what we did as kids. And really who brought me back to clown is Sukhmani Kohli, who is from India. And she came to the Art and Social Change program the first year that I came back to lead it. So I think it was like around 2013. And she came as a participant, and she's a clown. And she did this tiny little clown performance during the couple weeks. And my jaw dropped. And I couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, what is going on here? I am melting from happiness. And I decided, I was just like, Sukhmani, let's do this, let's clown together. And so we've been clowning together, when we can. We live very far away. So, and that's kind of the person who brought me back to clowning after many, many years. And then since then, I've been just doing it through Appomatic and through my own explorations. And we even have a video that we can also include in the show notes that we made. It's called Clowns Under Lockdown, and we did it in 2020. We made a little clown video. I'm very, very, it's great.
Oh, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can say that. Yeah, it's great.
It's great.
Wow. Does clowning feel different for you than like your theater practice?
Yes. Well, clowning is so connected to the audience. I mean, both of them are. Theater is definitely connected to the audience, but it's so weird practicing a clown piece by yourself. Like, that's kind of the difference, because like the clown is like very engaged with the audience and responding, and there's just that energy and that relationship. And sometimes with other theater shows, you don't depend on the audience as much. The piece is the piece.
Yeah.
So it's just, I made this piece called Fluidity, and I was practicing alone in my room for a really long time. I'm like, is this even funny? And then as soon as the audience is there, it just like brings it to life.
Yeah. It's the missing element, the people.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to wrap up with a question about art and social change, just so we can talk about it more, because like we said, it's coming up. We're going to talk about it. How was that transition from being a participant to then co-facilitating and facilitating for a lot of years for the program?
Yeah, so I didn't make it back immediately. As I said, I went in 2010, and then I think it was 3 years later where I came back as a facilitator. And, it was again that feeling of like, oh, me? You want me to help lead this program? And then it's really just changed and developed over the years, and Nadi Abdu has been a beautiful co-collaborator. Shoinka Rahim has been a beautiful collaborator. Phil and Cynthia, the co-founders of InterPlay, were great mentors to me. And it was very incremental in the sort of passing of the program and developing of the program. So it has been, very incremental, even though now, I'm sort of passing it along to you and trying to also create some of the incrementality that was built into when I was being passed the program. And, that's the beautiful thing about InterPlay is the amazing mentorship and the amazing ways that people can feel seen and heard within the organization. So affirmation is one of our tools, and it's something that we do often in InterPlay. And I felt as though there was a lot of affirmation along the way, so it made me feel more confident in being able to make that transition from participant to leader. And now we're excited to announce that art and social change. Oh yeah, drum roll. It's going to be in Chicago.
It's going to be in Chicago. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
So August 5th through the 16th in Chicago. We have some limited homestays available, first come, first serve. And I'm excited because I grew up in Chicago and I feel very connected to both art and social change here, and feel as though we can really dive deep, play deep into into Chicago and into really creating a beautiful cohort of people that come to experience the transformational practices of InterPlay.
Yes. I'm excited because I lived in Chicago for 8 years, and I'm excited to be back there. I moved there when I was freshly turned 21, and I feel like Chicago helped raise me, and like a lot of artists there in particularly modeled what it's like to like deeply care about social change and social justice and be an arts practitioner and move in that way. And I've always been inspired by Chicago itself, the city, the people in Chicago, big hearts, big like willingness and effort to just make shit happen. So Chicago's gonna be it for this summer, baby.
Baby. Yes. Where you were born, my friends. Chicago.
Chicago. I love talking with you, Agnotti. Are there any final words you'd like to share about anything we've talked about today?
Yeah, if you want to, get involved, if you want to come and join an InterPlay class, there are happenings all over the world, in cities all over the country, but we have places in India, Australia, some places in Europe, and Malawi, Uganda. So come and find us. We want you to be a part of this generous and wholesome community, wholesome and trickery community. Everyone should have access to play and body wisdom and joy, and come and find us.
Come and find us, yes. Well, thank you for our conversation today. Thank you to everyone who listened in. Your host today was me, Tere Zorich, InterPlay's liaison to Emerging Generations. Our theme song is Echo Lady Who by InterPlayer Eric Chappelle. We are delighted to be a part of your somatic journey as you delve into your own body wisdom, and find out more at interplay.org. And we hope that you join us for our next conversation. Goodbye.
So much today. Bye, everyone.